Trying this technique was a disaster. After seeing Shawna from Created and Made Studios do it, I knew I had to try it, but it did not go as planned. How often do you follow somebody's technique only to get completely frustrated when your results don't match theirs? I made so many mistakes that I almost gave up. And I debated whether or not to show you every single attempt, but I realized that sharing them might help you work through a similar challenge. Watch each attempt until the end, as it might give you the confidence to try this really cool technique. And I'm linking Shawna's video in the description below as well. This technique creates a stunning, cracked metallic background using just gold leaves on a gel plate. Now let's get started.
The first background that I started with my gel plate is with gold because I love gold. So basically I just took the gold leafing squares and I applied them. My gel plate is a 5x7 size and my squares were 3x3, so they were not filling the full plate completely, which was, I guess, not my first mistake, but I had to use more sheets to cover it. I did cut some of them in halves just to fill in the blanks and then just burnished it with a Keren so it sticks to the plate. When I put the paper, some of the gold leafing came off onto my paper and the quality wasn't the greatest because one of the things that she says to do is create cracks by moving the gel plate and creating those cracks on the gold leaf. But they were kind of falling off. And when I put the acrylic paint, some of it came off onto my brayer as well. I still managed to put the paint onto the plate and took a print, and honestly it came out really nice. I used some white paint so you can tell the difference in the contrast. So I figured one of the things that I can do is maybe use darker paint so I can create the contrast between the gold and the background. So instead, I took some alcohol inks, added it to the background and just brayered them, and then put my paper back on to color in the white paint. You can also add the alcohol inks directly onto your background if you want, but I figured this would be a much faster way, and it came out really nice. So I actually felt like I was on a roll because the effect was really beautiful. So I said that I will try it again because I really wanted to try other techniques. So I did the same thing and put the gold on the background by pressing it onto the plate. I don't know what happened on the second try, but I could not get any cracks on it. And the cracks were minimal. I don't know if it's because maybe the background was a bit wet, but I just went with it to see what would happen. This time I added a little bit of alcohol ink right onto the gold leafing so I could see how it stains it, and then added turquoise paint and placed my paper on top. Then I pulled the print and I realized I got no cracks at all. I mean, the background was really nice, but I really did not like the fact that there were no cracks. So I had to try one more time to see if the first time was fluke, because when you try something once, it's not a trend. When you try it 2 times and it fails, you're like, okay, you're not sure. So I have to try it at least 3 times to see what happens. This time I said I will follow the exact same steps that I did in the first try to make sure that I actually get similar results. But as you will see, it was not the case. Then I lifted it up and moved it around to create the cracks. And yeah, I mean, the cracks were forming really nicely. So I was very excited about it working this time. And I figured I will use some dark paint because this way I can really see the contrast between the metallic color and the dark paint. So I added the Payne's Gray, which is a really dark kind of bluish gray paint, and carefully added it to the background to make sure that I don't lift any of the gold leafing. I placed the paper on top, burnished it with my Keren, but when I lift it up, cracks are tiny. And I remember from Shawna's video that the cracks were large. And then I realized that she had used a different type of gold leafing. So I figured that maybe I should go and purchase that one and not just some random gold leaf that I chose myself. And I do recommend you buying this one, and you'll see why in a second. First of all, the one she recommended, the sheets were much lighter. They were 5x5, so that way they fit better on a 5x7 plate. And you could tell the difference was that the gold leafing that she recommended was much thinner. It has less of a mirroring effect, but it's more of a gold leafing effect. And when I placed it on and just lifted the plate to create cracks, it created some really large cracks that just looked beautiful on the plate. The only mistake that I made is that instead of using heavy body acrylic paint, I wanted to try the high flow acrylic paint because that's the only one that I had in black. And I applied the black paint to the background with my brayer. But when I lifted it up, the cracks of the gold leaf came out beautifully, but the black paint didn't really cover the background. I feel the effect looked amazing, but I just knew that this wasn't the right look that I wanted. So of course, I knew that I needed to do another attempt because I wanted to get the right combination for the look that I was going for. And this is really important to note that when you're experimenting and trying other people's techniques, it's important to continue attempting because sometimes doing somebody else's technique might not work out the way you want it. And experimenting with the different combinations might take away the frustration and help you not give up. And this time I was trying it with silver because, silver also looks really good. So I started creating cracks, and then I decided that I want to add a little bit of color with my alcohol inks, which I think it was a mistake because you can always add them later, not before. And that wets the gold leafing too much. So when I added the acrylic paint on top, things started lifting up. The effect turned out really nice, but again, not the right attempt. And it was really frustrating because I was still trying to get the right combination of what I liked. So you can see here that, it's a really cool effect. I had some of the leftover rose gold mixed with the silver, and I was able to get basically 2 prints out of it because not all of it came out. So for my second print, I actually waited about 10 minutes so that everything comes out. But again, I realized that this is not the right way. So I put silver on it again and started creating cracks. And somehow I decided that I'm going to bend the plate backwards instead of forwards. I don't know what made me do this. And I realized that I finally got those large cracks that I wanted, which solved my first issue. Then I followed Shawna's advice to solve the second issue. I didn't want the gold leaf to be lifted out from the gel plate. So she suggested to use a second larger gel plate, brayer some paint on it, place your paper on it first so it can soak up the paint, and then place it on the gel plate with the gold leafing. That way you are not brayering the gold leaf off the gel plate. Then when I pulled the print, it came out perfectly the way I wanted it. This time I also made sure that I added the alcohol ink at the end so I don't wet my gel plate beforehand. So I wanted to make sure that I get color on this because I love adding color, and I know that alcohol inks work well on metallics. So I started sprinkling some alcohol ink onto the background and using a little felt piece to just blend the colors together. I also sprayed a little bit of alcohol to make sure that everything blends, and you can use any of your favorite colors for this. Look how stunning it looks. But however, I was not done because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a fluke and that it can actually work if I follow the exact steps that worked until now. So I attempted the same exact steps a second time because I really wanted to get a good result with the gold. I really wanted to create a patina effect with the background. So I placed the gold leaf on top of the 5x7 gel plate, pressed it backwards to create these really big cracks, Then added some turquoise heavy body acrylic paint onto my second gel plate, placed the paper on top, and lifted the paint out of the paper. And you have to place it right away onto the background. I pressed the paper well onto the background and waited until it's fully dry to lift it up. So this is really important. You have to wait until it's completely dry so you don't lose any of the gold leafing. You can see the beautiful cracks that it created. Now, I just want to mention that I have a free PDF you can download, and I have all the combinations of each one of this, what worked, what didn't work, and what I used on each one. So you have a quick reference. You can download this PDF in the link below. The link is in the description. And that way you can see pictures of each one and understand what works and what doesn't work. It will have links to the proper products. So if you want to create these backgrounds, whether it is for your cards or for using these in collage journals, you can do that. I also went ahead and added some alcohol ink to this one as well in a couple of different colors. It was ginger, butterscotch, teakwood, and then a little bit of the turquoise color, because I wanted to create that really nice patina effect. I blended them all by patting it with a piece of felt that I had until I had the desired effect.
It's exciting to try new techniques, but it can be frustrating when you don't get the same results. Luckily, with this baby powder gel plate technique right here, you won't need much experimenting, as it worked perfectly every single time.